It's Talk of the Nation. I'm Juan Williams. Yesterday, an envoy from Afghanistan's rulers, the Taliban, spoke to a foreign policy group in Washington and defended the regime's decision to bomb into rubble two 1,500-year-old statues of Buddha that were carved in a mountainside. But as he spoke, he was jeered and called a criminal by a group of Afghanis who live in the United States. The demonstrators formed a picket line around the site of the speech. They carried signs protesting the Taliban's prohibition on education for women and the refusal to allow women to even walk outside their homes unless they're accompanied by a male relative. In his speech, Saeed Rahmatullah Hashami, a member of Taliban's foreign ministry, defended his country's rulers. He blamed the Western media for distorting the reality of what is happening inside Afghanistan. He said, quote, "I don't blame these people who are living here, because if the only source of my information about the Taliban was the Western media, I would hate them too." Hashami said that the Taliban has improved the human rights situation in Afghanistan, not made it worse. He said the Taliban has reunified the country, which has been torn by war for more than 2 decades. Hashami met with State Department officials Monday, and he delivered a letter for President Bush in which the Taliban asked for improved relations between the two countries. But a State Department spokesman said the letter did not address key U.S. concerns. Those include allowing accused terrorist Osama bin Laden, who is being harbored in Afghanistan, to stand trial on charges of bombing U.S. embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. Today on Talk of the Nation, a conversation with the roving envoy of the Taliban government of Afghanistan, Saeed Hashami. Joining us for the conversation is NPR's foreign editor, Lauren Jenkins. And you. Join the conversation. Our number is 800-989-8255. That's 800-989-TALK. Our email address is totn@npr.org. Mr. Hashami, welcome to Talk of the Nation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Before we begin, let me note to the listeners that you're only 24 years old.
That's right.
And the oldest Taliban leader, Mullah Omar, is only 40.
That's okay.
So is the youth of Afghanistan's leadership an issue, a problem in trying to negotiate with other countries like the United States?
No, I don't think so. The problems that you mentioned just a moment ago were not our creations. For example, you mentioned the existence of terrorism, the drugs, human rights, fragmentation, and the existence of arms and law and order. These things were the creation of war, and that war was not our creation. That war was ignited by the Russians and fought by the Americans. So we were played with. These two powers played their game there and left all the destruction, the weapons, landmines for us. We have said that after the Soviets left, it's okay. We are very thankful to the United States that they provide us weapons in defending our country. But after the Soviets left, the United States too left Afghanistan with all of this destruction, arms, and lawlessness that existed. So those 7 independent parties who went to Afghanistan later on destroyed the country for the sake of power. 75,000 people were only killed in the capital, Kabul. So seeing this complete chaos, a group of students called the Taliban first started in a village in Kandahar, in the southern city of Afghanistan. It happened when a warlord had abducted 2 minor girls, and they were wrapped in that base. The parents of those 2 girls came to a school and asked the teacher to help. And the teacher, along with his 53 students, went to help, and they first attacked the base of that commander. They released those 2 girls and hanged that commander later on. So we started from there, and this heroic story of the students were told everywhere, even by the BBC. So I was one of those who heard the story from the BBC in the refugee camps in Pakistan, and I went to join this students movement, and I'm still there. We don't say we're perfect, but look what we have done in the country. Afghanistan was fragmented into many zones before we were there. You could not travel with 1 visa to Afghanistan. Even you could even not be safe there. Everybody had gun and could shoot you anywhere. We first reunified a fragmented country, which nobody could do. And the second thing which the United Nations failed to do was to disarm people. The United Nations passed an appeal in 1992 and asked for $3 billion to repurchase the arms from the people. And because of its impracticability, that program never materialized.
Well, speaking of the United Nations, just this week the United Nations has expressed concern over the fact that their food aid program has been disrupted and they're not going to stop supplying some of this food aid because the Taliban, the regime ruling Afghanistan, is not allowing women to work for the United Nations and go into individual households in Kabul and look to see if, in fact, the food is getting to people who are hungry. Why is the Taliban refusing to allow women to work with international charitable aid groups?
We have never said that. We have said that we cannot accept a state within a state. We welcome anybody assisting us, but they should not dictate their rules. We appreciate any kind of assistance, but that assistance should not be politicized. And the problem of what you're mentioning was with WFP, and that problem has been resolved now. We have said that they can help, but they have to obey the rules.
So how is it resolved?
It was resolved later on when the United Nations fired their 2 staffs and sent new staffs. It happens when the United Nations is picking somebody from the streets of New York and then bring him there, who knows nothing about the culture, who knows nothing about the religion, nothing about the traditions, and nothing about the people. And they just jump there and poke around. So they do things from their own perspective, which is wrong. So we asked them to send professional people. And when they did it, it's okay now.
Lauren Jenkins?
Well, isn't one of the problems with all the relief agencies has been this problem of they can't get enough local staff because, again, the prohibition on women working with them. Traditionally, the women of Afghanistan played a very vital role in all the relief organizations, and now they go there and they find that they're so limited in what they can do and who they can reach that a lot of them have found it have pulled out or found it very difficult to continue providing what is obviously needed aid to Afghanistan.
Well, these organizations are still working there, and the women are working with them according to the rules of the government. And when we say that the United Nations or any organization, when they're working with women, when we say that there should be segregated workplaces, it doesn't mean that we don't want them to work there. There were organizations from irresponsible places that came there and recruited women and then took them outside for political asylum and deceived them and took them to Singapore and Thailand and sold them. So we don't have a very good experience with these people.
This is not the United Nations.
This is not the United Nations, of course. This is some NGOs that have done that.
Some charitable groups have taken Afghani women and taken them out of the country and sold them into slavery?
Yeah. There were so many kinds of organizations that they would come there and do some things. And we have to be very cautious while dealing with them. I don't blame the United Nations. The United Nations is doing their job. But that's not enough. We have said that they have to come more. Their bases are not even in Afghanistan. They are living in Pakistan. We have said, please move your offices into Afghanistan.